Well, it was just over a year ago that CNN collaborated with the Washington Post and many other so-called news outlets to destroy the lives of innocent teenagers from Covington High School in Kentucky. Operating on the basis of totally false cliches about those kids, they slandered them relentlessly. Well, last week, CNN settled a lawsuit from Covington student Nick Sandman. It was a triumph for ordinary people, a kid victimized by people far more powerful than he. It's understandable that CNN would want to sweep this under the rug. They got busted and they paid, hopefully many millions. But the rest of the press also, curiously, seemed uninterested in covering what is an inspirational story. Tammy Bruce hosts Get Tammy Bruce on Fox Nation, which is excellent, and she joins us today. Tammy, thanks so much for coming on. Why? This seems like a great story to me. Kid, literally a high school kid, fights back against the corporate behemoth CNN, Jeff Zucker, whose minions went out to destroy his life. He fights back, he gets justice, and nobody even notices? How?
Well, they've noticed, and they've chosen to not cover it. And this is, this is important because after this settlement, he was suing for about $250 million, $275. And even if he gets 10% or 1%, he's going to be fine. And of course, this is a minor, right? And yet the reason the other media really hasn't covered is because they also, many of them, not all, did very similar things to this young man. Of course, his crime was wearing a MAGA hat, right? His crime was that they were with the pro-life march. That was the first crime. And then the other crime was that they support the president. So what the attorneys for Mr. Sandman have announced is that in the next 30 to 40 days, they're going to be pressing at least 13 more lawsuits, including the standing lawsuits that exist still against Washington Post and NBC. They will be filing against ABC and CBS, an English newspaper called The Guardian, Huffington Post, which, of course, is on the Internet, NPR, a partly government-funded entity. You've got Gannett newspaper, which, of course, has a lot of smaller, Cincinnati Enquirer, and some smaller entities. So when you're looking at the spectrum here of individuals, entities, I should say, that did what the lawyers for Mr. Sandman say that CNN did, which is defame their client, you're seeing a media that, in a way, horrifically can't even report the news because they see themselves as perhaps suffering some consequences. So that's part of it. Remember, L. Lynn Wood also is the lawyer, and his team is the lawyer for Nicholas. And he had some great success also for Burke Ramsey, the son of Patsy Ramsey, who was against CBS, and they said that, they implied that he was involved in his sister's murder.
Yeah, they murdered his sister.
Yes, and they won. Ellen Wood won a settlement in that regard as well. So you're looking at an important lawyer who's done this likely, on contingency, a lawyer with history of success, a respected, serious man, and a minor being involved. But as long as the media is willing to destroy a minor, of course, it tells you that they're willing to do it to anyone at this point.
That's exactly right. I mean, they're supposed to be comforting the afflicted. They're supposed to be punching up
That's
at
correct.
A child from a Catholic school. They tried to destroy his life. I hope he crushes them. I mean it. I'm with the underdog in this case. All of us should be.
Absolutely. And lawyers and suing is not necessarily my favorite thing, but the fact is this is one way to keep the powerful in line, and especially media, when they've just not only abandoned their job and their responsibility, they've turned themselves into a mob of wolves, and are willing to rip anyone apart. That's going to have to stop.
They're the Praetorian Guard for the ruling class, is what they are. Tammy, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Great.